What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Thursday edition of BYP. Back your play. Rich Quinones here, joined with a fellow Giant fan, if you will, an obsessed one like myself, and we're just wallowing through, if you will. Ryan Kramer, co-host of Sports Gambling Podcast. These guys do a phenomenal job. Check them out online, sportsgamblingpodcast.com, at Kramer Centric. He's ready to go. He's got his blue on as well. I like it, repping the SGP. Ryan, good to talk to you, my friend. How's everything?
Yeah, as you mentioned, struggling Giants fan for some time now. It does feel absolutely filthy when I'm running my gambling trends and I'm scrolling the bar back and I'm like, man, 2011, that was a long time ago. So,
Yeah.
listen, we suffered through Joe Judge. I got in. I brought the all rise culture. Felt like a real ass at the end of it, and I'm excited, but it's also like, oh man, we've seen this movie before, right?
Yeah. Listen, I have news for you. I bought in the Judge too. I bought in for that short period of time. Remember when he sent Benjamin home during training camp?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
this guy and still crack some heads,
yeah.
get on asses, boom, boom, boom. After you have to deal with the oversized Denny's menu of McAdoo, and then Shermer was clueless, and I was like, okay, here we go. And then that lasted, about 2 weeks. And I
Mm.
realized he just wasn't the guy. And look, we know this, and I'm sure you guys talk about it. I talk about it a lot with Brandon on 27 and Q. They're just void talent. I mean, it was smoke and mirrors, nice story, right? 6-1, 7-2, and now we're kind of coming back down to earth. And I bet it scares a lot of the gambling public away too. Sometimes when you have to watch the Giants and you realize they're always going to have a difficult scoring, unless a lot of people are trying to play the unders here, but they're just void of talent and they got hit with the injury bug.
Yeah, I mean, I think just specifically, like the positive you take is, wow, this roster is pretty bleak. It was cool that they were able to scheme stuff up. I'm definitely happy about the coaching, and you can nitpick how they're handling Daniel Jones, aka we call him Dan Jones on the show. Sounds like a tougher guy, but it does seem like. I don't know if they're giving him enough opportunity to fail,
Great.
which as a fan I would love to see that risk, and maybe that starts this weekend. But I think the number is 37% of the salary cap is going towards players not contributing to the New York Football Giants right now.
Sure.
That's the bottom line. I think you think about the narratives that we'd be hearing if any other quarterback was strolling out practice squad wide receivers and dealing with the situation that Dan Jones is. Now that being said, I still think that a late push to the playoffs is an interesting, like, this short season we have here is an interesting opportunity to see what this coaching staff and players look like in a stressful environment. And so I'm stoked that we got flexed to Sunday night, because I think
Yeah.
one thing Dan Jones can get rid of before next season, if he's going to stick around, is maybe this prime time bug that he's got.
Yeah. Daniel, when he gets in trouble, Dan, when people want to, they're not going to reprimand him. I kind of like that. 0-11, right? To prime time. We know everything that ails the Giants. Real quick, I'm curious. I think after a while it gets ad nauseum. What are they going to do with Jones? What are they going to do with Saquon? You mentioned the salary cap constraints, right? Galladay with a lot of money tied up. Williams, they're going to have to pay guys. Lawrence and Love. Okay, we get it. I don't think, and people kill me for this. Uh, I don't think it's fair to judge him this year again, but I feel as though it's almost like, here we go. We have to wait another season. But I step back and say, I don't think it's fair, because look who he's trotting out there. Look who the Giants are trotting out there. Look at that offensive line. Look at the injuries. So let's fast forward, right? Sunday night, maybe a reprimand on Dan Jones and Saquon Barkley's career. He goes 20-25, 268, 2 touchdowns. They win, right? He does a flip side to that and a couple turnovers and fumbles. People are going to say, get rid of this guy in the offseason. Come the offseason, this team doesn't make the playoffs, but they win a couple more games. Where are you at with Jones, and where are you at with Barkley?
I mean, I think the unfortunate case with Barkley is it was so exciting to see him back at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, and now we're seeing what the NFL season seems to do to him more often than it doesn't. So I understand the branding aspect and the leadership aspect, and maybe Barkley would be willing to have a team friendly deal. That seems less likely now. On the other hand, Dan Jones taking a team friendly deal,
Right.
some sort of mid level 3 year type, because he understands, he's a smart guy. He knows that
Yeah.
this is the best possible scenario for him. When we just saw Mitchell Trubisky got a contract based on being a backup for Brian Dable in a
That's
couple
right.
games.
That's a
And
great
so
point.
if I'm Dan Jones' agent, I'm telling him, obviously I'm a Giants fan too, because I think the best thing for the Giants next year is to have Dan Jones back for another year in the
Great.
system. They can start getting more aggressive as they bring the talent in. And to me, I try to watch the film of every Giants game, and I think it's hard if you're an honest Giants fan who's watching these games. I think it's hard to blame Dan Jones in any of the game outside of the first couple games. He definitely had some rough moments.
Yeah.
He's been solid.
Agreed.
He's doing what he's being asked to do, and I think if you get him a little separation with the receivers, I mean, he's doing it with receivers that would not be on some of the teams that have bad receivers. Think about what he would be doing with the Denver Broncos skill set position, for example. I think, unfortunately, the flip side of that is that maybe this is just one of those efficiency
Yep.
coaching, getting the most juice out of the fruit
Yep.
situation, and when the things get better, it doesn't necessarily elevate. I hope they can figure out a way to wrap him up in some sort of deal, so we're not talking about the franchise tag.
Yeah.
We're not making another one of these critical team decisions that Gettleman did repeatedly to put us in this spot in the first place. So I do trust Shane to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I am worried a little bit that they're just going to blow it all up and we'll be dealing with some sort of rookie quarterback. But
Not good. Then you start to become what the Jets were, Tampa years ago, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Cleveland, always trying to find that quarterback or that bridge quarterback. I don't know how you keep saying Dan Jones with a straight face because it's making me laugh every time. So I don't know. Do you guys maybe should make it like a drinking game on the air or something like I just they're getting 4.5 Sunday night. Look, I know this is a tough spot, right? Because I sense this is going to be an ugly game, and it looks like Saquon's going to be a go. Bellinger should be a go, but they're still trotting out that offensive line. They're still kind of trotting out the lack thereof weapons. And then you got a hot Washington team feeling pretty good about themselves. I know Jones has played well in his career against Washington. Should have won that game last year, which was just another debacle with the offsides play late. Are you confident laying the 4.5 with the Giants, or are you going to go the other way?
catching the 4.5. Yeah, I mean they're them being so the way general gambling rule 3 point for home was the
Of
old
course.
model. Now it's 1.5 to 2 points. Any way you want to slice it, the Giants and the Commanders both don't have a home field,
Yeah.
and so when you start there and you realize that they just played a pretty even game, you could argue the Giants might have been the better team on the field, and it came to an actual tie. Washington didn't play another game, and now we're seeing Washington laying 4.5 points. It seems to me like if this could be almost any division where both teams are basically playing for a playoff berth, and I would say you take the points.
Yeah.
Now, as a Giants fan, I would say the Giants don't lose to the Washington football team, the Washington Redskins, the Washington Commanders, even when they're horrible.
Yeah.
And to your earlier point, Dan Jones 5-1 against this team ATS. So obviously the winner of this game, I believe, walks away with something near an 85% chance to make the playoffs.
It shoots up dramatically, and then it comes back down to like 28 to 30% that you're not going to get in the playoffs.
Exactly, and the
Yeah.
loser is basically, I mean, especially if it's the Giants because of their tiebreaker situations with the Lions and the Seahawks and then the Commanders. It makes it a really tough outcome, and so at the end of the day, I think this comes down to me like a chess match between Brian Dable, Ron Rivera. They just played like who can adjust better. I think it's been a strong narrative. The Giants have made great halftime adjustments. I think this coaching staff has been very good at being dynamic. Now I know you can micro nitpick at things that they've been stubborn about, but I think in general, in the flow of a game, they've done really good to adjust. And so for that reason, I like them here in this second matchup against a team that they are closer to talent
Yeah.
level than say the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And the total's sitting at 40 and a half. I saw it go up to 41, come back. I mean, I always get a little nervous with that because a lot of people will sit there and say, you gotta, you love playing the under, but guess what happens? Once it goes over, you're screwed. You're done, right? I mean, at least if you're going to play the total, if you're going to play the over, then if you get a game that's 20 to 17, you get that late touchdown to make it 24-20, you're sitting back and you're good. You don't have to sweat anything. Is that any, would you touch the total?
Totals are one of those areas where I've actually found a love for going to team totals lately. I think you can
Okay.
kind of even narrow the focus even more. But on a game like this, I think you're either taking the under or you're a maniac. Because if you come into this game, they just played, they're very familiar with one another. Neither offense is like the strength of either team. And I think both teams have done a lot with smoke and mirrors. You mentioned the form of the Washington Commanders lately. They've only lost one game
Yeah.
since the Heineke switch, which seems crazy. It seems
Yeah.
like for all the coin flippiness that we were hearing people talk about, the Giants getting lucky, the Vikings getting lucky, the Washington football team has been on the right side a lot of those as well. So perhaps we'll see a little regression.
Yeah, it's amazing too, right? They step away from Ginger Jesus and they go to I like to call him Coors Light Heineke, but he's playing well. So we'll see how it kind of plays out on Sunday night. All right. Don't forget again, Ryan Kramer, co-host the Sports Gambling Podcast, joining us on BYP Back Your Play. Check him out, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Give him a follow at Kramer Centric on Twitter. 49ers and Seattle. Always the short week, Thursday night football. These games just absolutely stink. I don't know about you, but my Amazon Prime, for some reason, freaking consistently buffers. It's annoying as hell. I missed the Thursday night, get it on NFL Network as it is right now. 49ers red hot, right? Purdy, 6 straight, laying 3.5. Seattle's dropped 3 of 4. They're a tricky bunch, man, because you got this young kid going on the road, 12th man. But then I say to myself, Geno. That's all I say. I'm waiting for that old Geno Smith to kind of rear his ugly head. Where are you leaning tonight with this game if you had a choice?
This is so we like to say on the Sports Gambling Podcast that some divisions just have flow charts. And in the NFC West, it's pretty clear that Pete Carroll owns Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start right there with the framework of, 15 of 18, the Seahawks have won over the Niners, 11 out of 10 in Seattle. Pete Carroll, obviously one of the few coaches that maybe has a way to stop the gimmicks of Kyle Shanahan. That being said, this Seahawks team, I think as Giants fans, maybe we're a little biased because we watched them, I think maybe at their absolute peak.
Yep.
I believe that game could have been their peak of the season. And when you look at who they actually defeated in that stretch, it was a absolute injured Chargers team, the Cardinals twice, and our New York Football Giants. Other than that, this defense has looked pretty horrible. Geno Smith is looking more and more like the Geno Smith we got to know in his previous stops.
Right.
And as square as it's going to sound, I understand there's plenty of sharp people in the industry that will be betting Seattle at plus 3.5 because that's just what you do here. I think this Kyle Shanahan Niner team could be on a bit of a roll, and I think Brock Purdy might be a little bit better than we're giving him credit for. He was a very solid starter for 4 years in Iowa State. He did all the things you want to see. He completed the passes, and that's all Shanahan asked him to do.
Yeah.
So, and the last thing I'll sprinkle in is I know a lot of people are saying Debo's out. I'm not worried about that. Debo has not been a big difference maker for this offense this year. I think the combination of Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk is really what is helping this offense go. So I'm gonna play the recency card here and say I think this Niners team is just rolling, and I don't really want to get involved with the game. That I can see it right now. Geno Smith trying a little too hard, pick 6. This one gets out
No
of
doubt.
control.
Yeah, no, agree 100%. Great points with Debo, by the way. And the one thing, just kind of piggyback and close out with that game. When you look at the 49ers on paper, right, fully healthy with the offense and that defense, I would say I would have loved to, even if Jimmy's back there, who knows how it's going to play out with Purdy, but that's a team that I think is built to go on the road and make a deep run in the playoffs and perhaps knock off a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. I got a couple more for you. This one's interesting. And the reason I'm bringing it up, the Colts and the Vikings, because I don't know where you're at with the Vikings. I'm a Captain Kirk guy. That's my guy. I think the guy gets a bad rap. And everyone was looking at that line last week, and the Lions, look at this, no reason. Well, what happens? The Lions go, they beat them outright. What was it, by 11? They were, I think, 3.5-point favorites in that one. Now you look how low the line is here against a bad Colts team. Is that because people are not believers in the Vikings, even though they have a pretty good home mark of 8-1?
I think the computing acceleration, everyone having a computer in their pocket, everyone can open a spreadsheet now, which means everyone is an analytics guy, which means everyone understands what a negative yard per play average is. Everyone understands when your point differential is negative and you're the worst 10-win team ever, according to the Football Outsiders. And so I think enough of the public understands now that it doesn't matter. Your win-loss record obviously matters, but it's not a way to measure a team going forward. It's not a way to project a team. And all of that being said, like this Vikings team, I'm still a football guy. I still believe in the powers of when you're winning, you're playing more confident football. And I understand that they've had a leaky defense,
Yeah.
and they maybe aren't as good on offense as they've looked in some games. And yeah, they've been outgained by 200 yards in game, but those games also happened in the past. And I think in this situation, it's a dip. We're getting a low point here for the Vikings, even though they're a 10-win team, even though they're certainly in the playoffs against the Colts team that I don't care that they were 2 points away from the Cowboys with a quarter to go. This is a team that's just wrecked. And I know this game takes place on Saturday, and it's cute
Yep.
that the coach's name is Jeff Saturday, but Matt Ryan is cooked. He looks like a
Done.
rubber when a defensive lineman touches him. He looks like one of those toys that when you break the integrity, it just completely collapses like a rag doll. And Matt, I know people. You'll hear smart gambling minds talk about Matt Ryan coming off the bye. Come on, don't kid yourself. Matt Ryan 3 years ago was more of an athlete than this guy that's rolling around today. So I think the Colts could keep it interesting maybe for a little bit here, but at the end of the day, Vikings still one of the strongest home fields
Yes.
in the league. And at the end of the day, also, this is a Colts team that is. They really don't have much to play for. Like I know they're not technically eliminated, but this would be a tough game to get up for them. And again, I can't stress to you how unimpressed I am with the coaching staff. They make these bad decisions, and then they talk about how they made the bad decisions in the public. Like that's not just generally that's not the best way to
Yeah.
improve your process. So give me the Vikings in a nice bounce back spot here. As they win this game, they lock up the division.
Yeah. So obviously, look, I mean, it's a game they want to go out there and make a good showing, especially what transpired last weekend's Lions. And to your point with some of these coaches, you're seeing it in Denver, you're seeing it with the Raiders, you're seeing it with the Colts, you're seeing it at times with San Diego. Like, okay, we like that you peel back the curtain, but we don't need to know everything, right? I mean, it's like, come on already. Two more for you. I love this game on paper. I'm not sure where I'm at betting wise. Miami and the Bills. I mean, Buffalo's looking for that revenge. Week 3 loss, 21-19. They've ripped off 4 straight, 8 out of their last 10. And then you got Miami, where everyone's waiting to sit back and say, "See, I told you so." The leaks figured them out. Tua's really not the guy. They're struggling in the run defense. You can't make the plays offensively. I don't know. Sometimes you throw those analytics kind of out the window. And if you're a fish fan, you look and you say, what worked the last time out, right? And now if you're a Buffalo, you're kind of hitting your stride, isn't it? Right? The team that you play, it's how well they're playing at that moment. And I think if you're a Bills fan right now, you're feeling good going forward. And this is a big game, especially when it comes to the AFC East.
It's also revenge. I mean, if you remember, this Dolphins team won an absolute miracle against the Bills earlier in the
Yep.
season
Week 3. Yeah.
in Miami, and you know how the AFC East works. There's a lot of splits because of that very very different climate down there in South Beach. I certainly liked the Bills more the second I saw head coach Mike McDaniel dancing around in practice with a shirt that said, "I wish it wore colder." I mean, why are you giving the Bills Mafia bulletin board material? There will be snow. Look,
Yes.
I hate to continue to keep giving chalky plays out here, but the second that I saw that the Dolphins brought heaters to Los Angeles for a game in a mostly dome, I just noted this is not going to go well. Tua's never played a game below freezing in college or in professional football. And I think the one thing I will say as a bit of a conspiracy theorist sometimes, this Buffalo Bills team since the bye has struggled on offense to get things going. I wonder if they're missing the brain, aka Brian Dable, because that would be the only thing that holds me back. But the counter argument for in my own head right now is that Mike McDaniel also, I feel like the blueprint got shown by DeMeco Ryans and that San Francisco 49ers
Absolutely.
defense. and a bad Chargers defense was able to mimic it. So I kind of like the Bills here. I think this is one of those games you circle, you put in the teaser. I think the Bills are definitely going to win it outright. So teasing it down to 1 would be my favorite play on the game.
Now that's a good play. Last one for you. And again, and I don't, we don't mind chalky. That's okay. We want the inside, man. You don't
Winners,
worry
right?
about the nuts
Winners.
and bolts, right? Yeah, exactly. uh, the Lions and the Jets. I mean, kind of like a tale of two teams, right? Lions start off 1-6, 5-1. Boom, the Jets are 2-4 over their last 6. Mike Effin White. This guy's got heart, guts, guile. He was knocked back to Hoboken last week, but yet it looks like he's going to go. You got to watch Flacco, who, by the way, looked like he wanted no friggin' business. I mean, honestly, Joe, come on. He's a South Jersey guy, Audubon, Pitt and Delaware. Call it a day, my friend. Right? Call it a day.
Yeah, it's funny because he's got to be thinking, man, I picked the worst team to think I was going to be a clipboard holding third string quarterback. They keep getting hurt and forcing me to play.
What do they expect me to do? Put the clipboard down and get out there? Come on.
It does sound like Zach Wilson will be the backup.
Yes.
So maybe Joe said, "Hey guys, I'm good if you want to just keep me inactive for the rest of the year." I mean, this is a good. We love the situations on the Sports Gambling Podcast, and sometimes it's as simple as this: the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff have played 3 straight home games, right, and they've looked really good in those 3 straight home games. And one of those games everyone watched on Thanksgiving morning against the Bills team that had been disheveled. They had to go and play that weird game in Detroit and then travel back to Buffalo and like deal with their families who are stuck without power, and then fly back to Detroit, and they still almost beat the Lions, but the Lions got the victory. And so I love fading the Lions here. Jared Goff, another quarterback who does not play well when the weather gets cold. Perhaps it's those smaller hands. But I think this Jets team, they're rallying around Robert Saleh, who, by the way, used to coach the defense for the 49ers. You don't think he knows a thing or two about stopping Jared Goff?
Yeah.
I absolutely love the Jets in this spot. Candidly, I'm surprised that the Jets, you can still bet the Jets as a pick 'em, even -1. This to me feels like a Jets -2.5, -3. So I'm all over the Jets here.
I was thinking that too, but then we get stuck and we get trapped in that recency bias, right? I mean, just go back and look at the Minnesota and the Detroit game. And I'm curious to see where the money's going to lie come Sunday around 12:50. This is a 1:00 kickoff. It's 4:25. Pardon me. I'm assuming it's 1:00 because the Jets are at home, but just to see the betting public, if they're sucked into that, this guy, Dan Campbell, let's bite and eat knuckles and kneecaps. And here we go. And they're a hot team, and the Jets, same old Jets,
I would even go further. I mean, this Detroit team is feeling themselves. Dan Campbell wasn't paying attention to the game.
I don't buy
when they
that.
decided to throw a pass to the
I was going to bring
tackle.
it up to you. No, that's showmanship. Come on, man. That guy's aggressive. I seen them fake punts before. He knew it. That's just for fodder, right? That's just for, hey, man,
it's gotta be
a great story.
And to your earlier question, like I think this is a game that we're going to see the money pretty split. I think in the gambling markets, when a number can sit and hover around a pick 'em for this long, it tells you they're getting bets on both sides. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets became that 2.5 point favorite by Sunday. But even that, it doesn't take a ton of money to make the move from pick 'em to 2.5. Would probably take twice as much money to get from 2.5 to 3. So yeah, absolutely. And to your point on recency bias, I'll give you another nugget, because like that to a lot of what you should be focused on in trends is looking at what's been happening recently and going against it, because we know these things always regress. We have a trend on the Sports Gambling Podcast we call the Close Your Eyes Special. It only gives you the grossest underdogs because no one wants to bet them because the recency bias is so negative. What do we think about last week? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady underperformed the spread by 21 points or more for the 11th time in his career.
Wow.
He's 9-2 in the games following those games. If you reduce it down to when he's a dog, which is the true trend, he's 3-0 ATS. This is a trend that if you lay across every team in the National Football League, it's 58% in the last 20 years. Long-term solid trend. And so, yeah, I mean, bonus, I don't know if you were going to jump over there, but threw it out anyway. Bonus pick this week in terms of fading recency would be fading the Cincinnati Bengals and buying Tampa Bay as a 3.5 point home dog.
Yeah. See, but the way you're breaking it down is absolutely brilliant. I also look at it from right, take it back to the blue collar football fan, so to speak, in the sports yapper. Oh man, you got a pissed off Brady. He just got waxed, right?
Yeah,
But I like what you're saying. It's almost like that contrarian view, so to speak, but you have the numbers to back it up, and that's key.
and the other element here is this is a game that projects. If you
Yeah.
ask me this right now, there's not many people that are coming to bet Tampa Bay right now. It's only Bengals bets. So I think this is one of those ones where it's going to be unpopular. It fades recency. It does a lot of things that just makes it gross. I mean, if you
Yeah.
said this to a friend, they're going to be like, "Nah, they stink."
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
he's done. He's washed up. He's 40. He's dead. Look at his face. He looks unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, he's got to go out and date and have some more avocado ice cream. I mean, that's just, listen, before, I mean, that's it, right?
Yeah.
That takes care, that and duct tape are the solutions to all of life's problems, my friend.
Oh, I love that.
Talk a little bit about what you guys do with the sports gambling podcast.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, basically the conversation we just had. I mean, 11 years ago we started recording our phone calls talking about NFL picks, and it's grown into the sports gambling podcast, daily shows. We're covering college football, college basketball, NFL. You got it. We're covering it. But on top of that, we launched a business. We got podcast feeds covering everything from MMA to golf to NBA to World Cup to disc league to CFL. Like we do it all. So if you want to gamble on something and you're looking to dip the toe in, check out the Sports Gambling Podcast.
Where are you? I, I think ultimately gambling across the board, sports betting is going to be probably legalized in every state. I, I think maybe Utah will
Yeah.
be, the last to come aboard. I'm fascinated by that stuff, working in the street, having working in brick and mortar with the casinos and online as well, and doing this. And it's funny because I remember doing radio for so long when I used to talk about this gambling, even with odds and the boxing odds, and going back 2006, 2007, even prior to that, people were like, no one's talking about sports betting on the air, right? It was like taboo, so to speak. Now everyone's in bed, right? And everyone, you know, you guys are extremely knowledgeable, but then you see the other kind of goofballs that everyone thinks they're a friggin' expert. I never see a losing pick or a losing slip on social media. I don't know what happens. Maybe it disappears. I don't know. We'll try to find out. It's one of life's mysteries. But do you believe eventually every state will be legalized? And do you also foresee a situation down the road where every live broadcast, when it comes to sports, because I think we're going to see it eventually, everything, they're going to give you the options while they're talking about the broadcast for real-time sports betting, prop bets, over, under, total, next play, next pitch. And like, that's what the broadcast might become, that, if that makes sense.
I think so first off, I think the only thing stopping us from legalizing in every state but Utah is purely political nonsense.
Right.
And so it's a complete win for everyone. We're seeing all the additional tax revenue. You're letting people do it regulated and legally, and you're not having to deal with Uncle Tony and meeting him on off Route 22 at the McDonald's to on a Wednesday because you lost.
Wondering why the trunk is empty.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only thing really, like, you see it with the way that different states are rolling it out, but the only thing getting in the way is politics. I mean, I'm in California. It seems like we're getting closer, but it's still, we have to get all these tribes together and get them to agree, and it's going to take years. So unfortunately, but you made an earlier point about the content creation. There never being losing picks on out on social media, and it's interesting because we've been in the game for a while, and we often will talk to like interns or young college students because they teach sports podcasting now in college, man, which is crazy. But we talk to these kids, and they always want to know, like, how do you handle the stress of being right and having to make these picks, and it's like, that's the thing, is I think the content creation business is going to fork, and you're going to have the entertainment, which is like, hey, come hang out with us. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about it. But by no means am I selling you anything. I want you to have fun. Yeah. And I think you're seeing the other side of it, which is like the salesman of like, let me sell you a pick. Let me get you to do my pick so I can do something with it. And that's the area where, well, at the end of the day, that stuff becomes empty because either your picks start drying up and people realize you're not that good at it, or to your point, hey, where are your losers? Why don't you ever mention those? I mean, honestly, some of our best episodes are when we have horrible weeks.
Yeah, you got to talk about it.
It's because that's really what gambling is. It's something people want to do and be entertained with and have fun. And when you win a lot of money, it's emotional, and when you lose a lot of money, it's emotional. And so, yeah, I think that's the area where, there's some police out, the social media police of like calling people on their BS sometimes. You're seeing it happen a lot more and more in the gambling space, because I think more and more as it becomes accessible, people understand what's real and what's fake. And so that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I still remember, I think it was 97, 98. It was a $200-300 teaser. Me and my friends across the board. I think it was 4 teams, the Jets in Seattle. Vinny screwed me. To this day, we're still talking about it. But I always tell people at the end of the day, it is money management, right? It really is. It's just like going to the casino. You're not sitting down with $1,000 at $100 table, unless you're a card counter, unless you understand units and progressive betting. You're going to get killed. You maybe run through a shoe, and maybe you're winning 4 to 5 hands. You can sit down with $1,000 at a $15-25 table, and you can space it out a little bit. It's just being smart, right? Doing it judiciously, the money management. A lot of guys love to chase, man, and it's not good.
But that's the thing, is it's funny because I think that's where there's no one that really addresses how humans actually gamble. You either have the spreadsheet nerd community who only is doing this to make a profit, and they don't understand why anyone would do this for fun. And the other side of it, which is the guy that just wants to fire off a $50 bet because he's watching the game.
Yeah.
And I think like that's to me, no one is in the middle saying, hey, you know what? Same game parlays are super fun, but by the way, you should really only be using this much of your money on them because they're bad bets.
Yeah, right.
Like it's like the second it became legal, we saw on like channels like Fox, they're trying to push first home run bets on you, which, the edge on those for the house is like 35%. Those are horrible bets. They're worse than horse racing. Yeah. And so it's the other element is like, know what you're doing, know the game. Blackjack's a great analogy. How often do you sit down and the person next to you doesn't know if they're supposed to take a hit with a 16 against a 20? Like, why would you put your money into a situation when you don't understand the rules of engagement? So same thing with sports betting, like understand the market. It doesn't take a ton to understand what's going on and the dynamics. And if you understand, you can certainly save yourself those pennies that would fall through the cracks of you just not knowing the difference.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Unless you're sitting at a table, right? No mid-shoe entry, $25. Everyone knows what you're doing. But the variables, because I'm a blackjack player, there are ridiculous. It's hit and run. Get in, get out, and that's it. It's hit and run. The longer you stay, you're going to put it right back. It's just, and you just get those 2 to 3 good hands, and you hit them, double split, and you get out. Hey, Ryan, great stuff, pal. When, for the listening audience, how many times you guys drop everything? Where can they go? Obviously to the website. I'm sure you guys are all over, as far as, the Apples and the Spotify's and whatnot. Give it a little plug before you get out of here.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, anywhere you can download an app, whether it's on an Apple TV or we got an OTT app, Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We got a regular app, Sports Gambling Podcast. Like, you can find all our stuff there. Spotify, Apple, obviously, YouTube. And the main show, Sports Gambling Podcast, we're dropping content every day of the week. So every morning you got a fresh show talking everything from college football, college basketball, NFL, and everything in between.
Awesome. Listen, man, I appreciate you jumping on back your play. The best of luck going forward. Hopefully you guys, as we like to say, you stack it and back it, and you'll be good to go with your bets. But I appreciate you making a couple moments, pal.
Best of luck this weekend. As we say on the Sports Gambling Podcast, let it ride.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it. Ryan Kramer jumping on board for a couple minutes. This edition of Back Your Play.